All right, so for today's deep dive, we're going to be looking into the world of a young woman named Esther.
Okay.
And you're going to be experiencing her story primarily through excerpts of a novel.
Right.
And this novel is set in the mid-20th century
Okay.
as she kind of navigates life after a mental breakdown.
Wow.
So are you ready to unpack some pretty serious themes like mental health and societal expectations and even the search for identity?
Absolutely. And I think what's really fascinating about this particular novel is the way the author uses incredibly vivid imagery and these metaphors to really convey that inner turmoil that Esther's going through.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're getting this front row seat to the complexities of mental health, and
Yeah.
especially at a time when these conversations were often just silenced.
It really does feel that way, and especially in the opening scene
Yeah.
when we're introduced to Esther,
Okay.
she's actually preparing to leave a mental asylum
Oh, wow.
called Belsize, and it's a snowy January day, which got me thinking, is this snow simply a picturesque detail, or is there something more to it?
It's definitely more than just pretty scenery.
Okay.
This pristine, snowy landscape, really becomes this powerful symbol throughout the whole story.
Okay.
So think of it as a blank slate, a fresh start that Esther is contemplating as she's getting ready to return back to the outside world.
Okay, but even with this idea of a fresh start, there's also this underlying tension, right? It's like she's carrying the weight of the past and all these societal expectations.
Exactly. And that's where that bell jar metaphor comes in.
Yes,
It's really central to understanding Esther's state of mind.
that imagery really stuck with me,
Oh, yeah.
being trapped under this bell jar.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that deeper meaning of that metaphor?
Well, it's like she's viewing the world through this warped lens,
Okay.
feeling suffocated and unable to fully connect with just the vibrancy of life. It's really a powerful way to represent that isolation and that distorted reality that
Yeah.
so often accompanies depression.
Right.
And it's not just a feeling,
Yeah.
it really affects her actions.
Okay.
Take, for example, when Buddy Willard shows up unexpectedly at the asylum.
Oh, yes, Buddy Willard.
Yeah.
A significant figure from Esther's past
Yeah.
and suddenly appearing at the asylum.
Right.
And their reunion was, well, not exactly heartwarming.
It definitely was not.
No.
You can feel this awkwardness, this distance between them, and Esther observes how Buddy seems changed.
Right.
Like he's weighed down by his experiences and especially a recent tragedy.
A tragedy that seems to have him questioning everything. I mean, he even asks Esther, do you think there's something in me that drives women crazy?
Wow.
It's such a loaded question.
It really is, and it directly connects to the death of Joan,
Oh, Joe.
another woman from their past who recently died by suicide.
Totally.
So Buddy's question really brings up these really complex ideas about guilt and responsibility and just the ripple effect that relationships can have on mental health.
And which makes me think about that responsibility on the medical professionals, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Even Dr. Nolan, who is a psychiatrist and she seems so dedicated, is shown to be deeply affected by Joan's suicide.
Right. I think it reminds us that mental health is a complex landscape.
Yeah.
Even for those whose job it is to kind of help navigate it.
Right.
There are no easy answers, and even the best intentions can sometimes fall short.
Absolutely. And you see this reflected in how society views women
Yes.
and their expected roles,
Right.
which ultimately impact Esther's mental state as well.
Definitely.
As Esther gets closer to leaving the asylum, she starts to think about the expectations waiting for her on the outside.
Right.
Marriage normalcy
Mm-hmm.
fitting into the mold of like the conventional wife and mother.
Mm-hmm. And what's so interesting is we see this contrast play out through another patient,
Okay.
Valerie.
Okay.
She seems perfectly content with that more traditional path,
Right.
embracing those expectations.
Right. But for Esther, it's just not that simple.
No, it's not.
There's this yearning for something more.
Yeah.
A struggle against those societal constraints.
Yeah, like she can't ignore this growing desire for self-discovery and a life defined on her own terms.
Absolutely. And her encounter with Irwin really solidifies that for me.
Oh, tell me about that scene.
It's a short scene,
Sure.
but so impactful.
Okay.
Irwin is this charismatic math professor,
Hmm.
but their interaction leaves Esther feeling strangely empty.
Okay.
What's fascinating to me is how she takes control,
Yeah.
ending the relationship definitively, even with Irwin practically begging to see her again.
Wow.
It's a small act of rebellion, but so powerful.
It is powerful. It's like she's rejecting that expected script,
Yes.
refusing to be defined by this relationship or what society dictates a woman should be feeling.
Then we shift to Joan's funeral,
Okay.
which takes place in this snow-covered cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And the imagery here is striking the black shadow of the grave, the sense of wounds being buried beneath the snow.
That juxtaposition of the stark black grave against the pristine white snow, it speaks to the finality of death,
Yeah.
but also to the way life with its seasons of change and renewal eventually covers even the deepest wounds.
And in the midst of all this collective grief, Esther has this incredibly powerful moment of self-affirmation.
Oh, yeah.
She repeats to herself, I am, I am, I am.
It's almost like a mantra, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like clinging to her own existence, asserting her will to survive in a world that often feels so overwhelming.
Right. And this inner strength will be crucial
Yeah.
as she faces her interview with the board of doctors.
Right.
Well, the interview.
Yes.
The whole novel seems to be building toward this moment.
Yeah.
You can feel the tension rising
Oh, absolutely.
as Esther wakes, nervously flipping through magazines, trying to distract herself from the anxiety.
The novel just brilliantly captures that mounting tension, that feeling of being scrutinized and judged.
Yeah.
Like your whole future hangs in the balance.
And it's not just the interview itself.
Mm.
Remember her observation of the asylum librarian, whom she describes as myopic, spinsterish faced?
Oh, yeah.
It's as if she sees a possible future for herself, one where she fades into the background,
Right.
conforming to expectations.
That detail is so insightful.
Yeah.
It highlights that fear of losing your spark your individuality to the pressures of societal norms.
And even though Dr. Nolan tries to reassure her,
Yeah.
Esther can't shake this feeling of dread.
Right.
And she describes the boardroom as filled with eyes and faces of authority,
Wow.
all focused on her.
It's like she's stepping into this arena of judgment where her sanity, her worthiness is being evaluated.
Yeah.
And it's a feeling that I think resonates with anyone who's ever felt that pressure to prove themselves to be deemed acceptable.
Absolutely. And in Esther's case, the stakes are so incredibly high. Her freedom, her future literally depends on the outcome of this interview.
Right.
And just as that tension reaches its peak,
Yeah.
we're left hanging. The scene ends with Esther stepping into the boardroom, the outcome unknown.
It's a brilliant cliffhanger.
Yeah.
We're left grappling with that same uncertainty that Esther is feeling, wondering what awaits her on the other side of that door.
Exactly.
That feeling of uncertainty you mentioned, it's something the novel keeps circling back to even as Esther's preparing to leave the asylum. I'm reminded of the scene where she's walking with Valerie, another patient, and Valerie says, "Be seeing you."
Oh, and Esther thinks to herself, not if I know it.
Right.
I found that so interesting because on one hand, she's about to be released, but there's this part of her that's not entirely sure she wants to leave this structured environment.
Right. It makes you question what freedom really means for someone like Esther.
Yeah.
Is it simply just a change in location, or is there something much deeper going on?
Especially considering she's going back to a world that has all these expectations for her. I mean, even Buddy, with his question about who she'll marry now,
Right.
really highlights the limited options she sees for herself, as if marriage is the only path to fulfillment.
And it's like that experience in the asylum, whether she wants it to or not, has really become a part of her identity.
Right.
It's not something she can simply just erase.
Right.
Which brings us back to this idea of societal pressures,
Yeah.
particularly for women in that era.
It's constantly there lurking beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
And those pressures definitely shape Esther's interactions with men, even outside the asylum.
Right.
Take her encounter with Erwin, for instance.
Ah. Erwin, the charismatic math professor, that scene really surprised me.
Really? What stood out to you about that scene?
Well, typically you would expect the man to be the one ending the relationship.
Right.
But here it's Esther who takes control.
Yeah.
She ends things over the phone, and he's practically begging her to reconsider.
It's like she's rewriting the script, refusing to play the role of the demure, agreeable woman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's making a choice based on her own feelings, regardless of societal expectations.
And speaking of powerful choices, Joan's funeral set against the backdrop of that snowy cemetery feels significant for Esther in a different way. All that imagery, the black shadow of the grave, the feeling of wounds being buried under the snow, it creates such a somber atmosphere.
It's heavy with the weight of loss and grief.
Yeah.
But there's also this underlying sense of the cyclical nature of life and death. Nature with its constant change eventually obscures even the most profound losses.
And amidst all of that, Esther has this incredible moment of self-affirmation. She repeats to herself, I am.
It's a powerful declaration of her agency,
Yes.
of her will to survive and chart her own course,
Right.
despite the challenges she faces.
And those challenges come to a head in the pivotal scene of her interview with the board of doctors.
Yes.
That whole sequence leading up to the interview is so masterfully crafted. The mounting tension, the feeling of being scrutinized, your fate hanging in the balance. You can practically feel Esther's anxiety.
It's palpable, isn't it? We see her nervously flipping through magazines, trying to distract herself. And then there's that moment where she observes the asylum librarian and describes her as myopic, spinsterish effaced.
That description really struck me. It's like she sees a potential future for herself. One where she conforms and fades into the background, losing her own unique spark.
It highlights this fear of losing your individuality, of becoming another nameless face in the crowd,
Right.
especially within the context of societal expectations for women.
And even though Dr. Nolan tries to reassure her that underlying dread doesn't go away, remember how Esther describes the boardroom with all the eyes and the faces of authority focused on her.
It's like she's being put on trial, her sanity and worthiness being judged by those in power. That feeling of vulnerability and exposure is something I think a lot of people can relate to,
Yeah.
even if they've never been in a situation like Esther's.
That universal feeling of being judged, of needing to prove yourself worthy of acceptance. And for Esther, the stakes are so incredibly high. Her freedom, her future rests on their decision. And just as that tension reaches its peak, we're left with that cliffhanger. Esther stepping into the boardroom, her fate uncertain.
It's such an effective ending to this section, mirroring the ambiguity of real life. We don't always get clear-cut answers or neat resolutions. Sometimes we have to face the unknown, make choices, and forge our own path, even when the way forward is unclear.
And that's precisely what makes this story so compelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from the complexities of mental health, societal pressures, and the search for identity. It leaves us with more questions than answers, which I think is a good thing. So, okay, welcome back to our deep dive into Esther's world. And, we left off with her about to face the board of doctors.
Right.
Which has me thinking, like, what does freedom even really look like?
Yeah.
For someone who's been, like, wrestling with so much internally?
It's a really good question. Is it as simple as walking out of those asylum doors? Or is there something more to it?
Yeah.
I think the novel really challenges us to consider what true freedom actually means,
Okay.
especially for someone like Esther who's carrying the weight of all these societal expectations.
Especially for a woman in that era, it really makes you wonder if she'll even be able to resist those pressures,
Yeah.
to conform,
Right.
just fit neatly into the role society is like laid out for her.
Yeah, it's a tension that runs throughout this whole story.
Yeah.
And, it's something that a lot of people, even today, can probably relate to,
Yeah.
that pressure to fit into certain molds.
Absolutely. And I think it's through Esther's journey that we really see the complexities of these choices, those internal conflicts and external pressures, and how they ultimately impact a woman's sense of self.
And what I find so remarkable about this novel is it doesn't offer these easy answers or neat resolutions.
Right.
It leaves us, just like Esther, grappling with these questions about identity, freedom, and ultimately what it means to live a meaningful life.
Which is probably why this story continues to resonate with readers even decades later.
Yeah.
It's so timeless.
It really is. It speaks to something so universal about the human condition, about navigating those challenges of life loss and just finding your place in the world.
It's interesting you say that, finding your place in the world, because it brings me back to that bell jar metaphor.
Okay.
I'm curious, how do you think that symbol of isolation and distorted reality connects to like our modern experiences of things like anxiety and depression?
That's such a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
I think especially today, in a world that can often feel so isolating and overwhelming, that sense of being trapped under a bell jar of struggling to connect is something that a lot of people can relate to.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the power of literature to connect us across generations, across experiences, and to remind us that we're not alone in our struggles.
Absolutely. And, if you're at all intrigued by Esther's story and what we've been discussing, I highly encourage you to check out the full novel.
Yeah.
It's a truly powerful and moving read, and one that will stay with you long after you finish it.
Absolutely. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive. We hope you found it enlightening and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for those stories that challenge you and connect you to the wider human experience.